My wife said she slept with someone else. I asked, who's the lucky guy? I was cutting into my steak when Cindy started crying at our anniversary dinner. She'd planned this whole thing months ago at the fancy steakhouse downtown, where we'd gotten engaged 4 years back. I slept with someone else, she said between sobs. I put my fork down slowly and looked at her mascara running down her cheeks. My brain felt like it was buffering like a bad internet connection. Who's the lucky guy? I asked. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. Maybe I was in shock because just last week she'd grabbed my hand and put it on her stomach with this huge smile, saying she'd missed her period. We'd been trying for a baby for 3 years and things were finally looking great. But now she looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Robbie, I fell in love with him, she whispered. The restaurant noise faded out like someone turned down the volume. I stared at the little gift box in my jacket pocket with the pearl earrings. She'd been eyeing for months. This whole dinner was her idea. She'd reminded me about it every day this week. Who is he? I managed to ask. She shook her head hard and wiped her eyes with the fancy cloth napkin. I can't tell you. I need to protect him. We left without finishing our food. The drive home was dead silent except for her sniffling. I dropped her at our apartment and drove straight to my best friend James's place. He opened the door in his boxers eating cereal at 10 at night like always. Dude, you look like death, he said, letting me in. I told him everything while he sat there with his Lucky Charms getting soggy. When I finished, he ran his hand through his messy hair. Man, I had a feeling something was up, but I didn't want to say anything without proof. You should check out that Isaiah guy she works with. They're always getting lunch together. The thing was, I actually knew Isaiah's sister, Marielle, from college. We'd stayed friends, and she was always posting pictures of her brother on Facebook. I messaged her that night asking if anything was going on between Isaiah and Cindy. She called me immediately. Oh, honey, no way. Isaiah has been with his boyfriend Carlos for like 2 years. He's just not out at work yet because of all the conservative people there. She paused, then added something that made my stomach drop. If you really want to know who she's been seeing, just check whose Instagram story she watches first. That little circle always shows up at the beginning for whoever you interact with most. Cindy was already asleep when I got home. Her phone was charging on the nightstand like always. We knew each other's passwords because we'd never had trust issues before. My hands were shaking as I opened Instagram and clicked on the stories. The first face that popped up made me want to throw the phone across the room. Brad Wire, the guy who made my life hell all through high school. The one who shoved me into lockers and called me names I won't repeat. He was some hotshot real estate agent now with the fake smile and slicked back hair. The next day I drove to his office. The receptionist said he was showing a house, but I waited in the parking lot for 2 hours until his stupid BMW pulled up. He saw me and his face went white. Robbie, we need to talk, he said before I could even say anything. We sat in his office that smelled like too much cologne. He kept fidgeting with his stupid expensive watch. Look, what's happening with Cindy is messed up. I'm done with it. No one deserves what she's doing to you. What are you talking about? My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Brad pulled out his phone and showed me text messages, screenshots of conversations between Cindy and other numbers. My vision got blurry as I read them. She'd been with multiple guys. Not just Brad, but at least 6, maybe 7 others from what I could see. The messages went back 2 years. There's something else, Brad said quietly. Those pregnancies you guys kept losing. They weren't miscarriages, man. The room started spinning. 3 years we'd been trying for a baby. 3 times she'd gotten pregnant. 3 times she'd come home crying, saying she'd lost it. I'd held her each time while she sobbed into my chest. She never knew whose it would be, Brad continued. She told me she couldn't risk it. She'd been going to this fertility clinic outside the city, Dr. Wire. I stumbled out of his office and threw up in the parking lot. When I got home, Cindy was on the couch with her laptop. She looked up with red eyes. Dr. Wire called, she said. The fertility specialist. She says the procedures might have caused scarring. I might not be able to have kids anymore. I stared at her laptop screen at the notes she'd been typing about fertility treatments, and something inside me just shut down. My hands went numb. I walked past her without saying anything and went straight to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. The pearl earrings were still in my jacket pocket, digging into my leg through the fabric. 200. I'd saved up over 3 months, sneaking 20 here and 40 there from my paycheck. She'd pointed them out at the jewelry store back in August. Said they reminded her of her grandmother's pearls. I shoved them back in my pocket and grabbed my keys. Cindy was still on the couch when I walked back through the living room. She looked up at me with those red eyes and opened her mouth to say something. But I was already out the door. I sat in my car in the parking lot for maybe an hour, just gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white and started aching. Every time I tried to think about what to do next, my brain just skipped like a scratched CD. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Cindy left around 8, coffee in hand, chatting about some project at the office. I nodded and made the right sounds, but my mind was elsewhere. Every word she said, every casual gesture I cataloged. Seth had told me to document everything, and I wasn't about to let this chance slip. First, I grabbed her phone while she was in the shower. My hands shook so badly that I almost dropped it twice, but I kept steady. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and started screenshotting everything. Her Instagram messages, the order of the stories she watched, her texts going back months. Every few screenshots, I uploaded them to the cloud. I couldn't risk losing anything if she woke up unexpectedly. It took nearly an hour, and by the end, my fingers cramped. I crept back into the bedroom and plugged her phone back into the charger, exactly how she'd left it. Then I lay on the couch, trying to look normal when she finally came out of the bathroom. She didn't suspect a thing. Over the next few days, I fell into this weird, exhausting routine, pretending everything was normal while secretly documenting her life. I watched her social media interactions, noted her conversations, and cross-checked dates with our shared calendar. Every lunch she had, every coffee break, every casual message from friends, and I cataloged it all. One evening, she tried to initiate sex. I panicked internally. I couldn't risk a slip-up. Couldn't risk saying something that would blow my cover. I made another excuse about still not feeling well and left the room. The guilt on her face was almost enough to break me, but I remembered all the manipulation, all the lies. I swallowed my anger and held my tongue. Then came the real shock. I started researching Dr. Wire, the fertility doctor Cindy had been seeing. The clinic's website looked clean, professional, like any other medical office, but reviews told a different story. Women wrote about feeling pressured into procedures they weren't sure about doctors ignoring their concerns. Some even mentioned procedures done without fully informed consent. I screenshot everything and emailed it to Seth. He responded within the hour. This was all relevant. The more I dug, the more I realized Cindy's deception wasn't just personal, it was systematic. She had been controlling and manipulating every angle, protecting her lovers, hiding evidence, all while I thought we were building a life together.
Then came the first major break in my plan. Brad Wire called. "Robbie," he said, his voice low. "There's something else you need to know." My stomach sank. I already knew about the pregnancies, the clinic, the multiple affairs. What could possibly be worse? The miscarriages? They weren't miscarriages, Brad said quietly. My hands gripped the edge of my desk as I listened. Cindy went to the clinic. Dr. Wire performed the procedures. She terminated every pregnancy because she couldn't risk it being yours. My chest felt like it had been hollowed out. 3 pregnancies. 3 times I had held her while she cried. 3 times I comforted her, told her it would be okay, and each time it had been deliberate. Each time she had chosen someone else over me. I stumbled out of Brad's office and into the parking lot. My stomach turned violently. I barely made it back to my car before throwing up again. For days after, I stayed in a kind of fog. I didn't eat properly, didn't sleep properly. I just moved through the motions, following Seth's instructions, documenting everything, preparing. Every glance Cindy threw me, every question she asked, I answered carefully. Nothing could hint that I knew. But beneath it all, something else was growing. A cold, methodical determination. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not anymore. By the end of the week, I had everything organized. Screenshots, texts, social media interactions, financial records. Every evidence point neatly backed up, ready. I even set up a second bank account and moved funds she didn't know about. A step Seth had advised to protect myself financially. And then I waited. Waiting was harder than acting. Each day felt like walking on a tightrope. I had to keep pretending, keep living with her without letting her suspect. But the clock was ticking. Every lie she had told, every betrayal, it was all coming to a head. I knew the confrontation was inevitable. I didn't know when or how it would happen, but I knew one thing for certain. When it did, Cindy was going to see that I wasn't the same man she had taken for granted, and I was ready to show her that the consequences of her choices had just begun.
The weekend arrived and Cindy didn't suspect a thing. I stayed calm, almost unnervingly normal, joking when appropriate, answering questions with a neutral tone. Every glance, every casual touch I carefully avoided. Seth had emphasized patience. Wait until we had every piece of evidence, then act. I decided it was time to escalate. I called Seth and explained that I had compiled everything. Texts, social media activity, receipts, financial records, the fertility clinic research. He told me to schedule a meeting immediately and to bring all copies in both digital and print formats. That afternoon, I packed everything into a briefcase, Screenshots printed, emails saved, cloud backups ready. I rehearsed my tone, the words I'd say, the calm and control I needed to maintain. This wasn't just about exposing Cindy anymore. It was about protecting myself and making sure justice was on my side. When I returned home, Cindy was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. I took a deep breath. "Cindy," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk. About everything." Her smile faltered slightly. "About what?" I placed the briefcase on the table and opened it, spreading printed screenshots and documents in front of her. She leaned in, confusion turning into dread as she recognized the first few pages. "I know everything," I said calmly. "The Instagram stories, the messages with Brad and the others, the pregnancies, Dr. Wire, everything." Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. "Robbie, it's not what you think." I raised a hand. "And save it. I don't want excuses. I just want the truth." For a moment, she said nothing. Just looked at the evidence, at the proof of every betrayal. Then she broke down completely, collapsing onto the couch. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, barely audible. "I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you." I felt a wave of something dark and cold inside me. Every memory of her smiling at Brad, texting other men, letting me hold her while she lied. It all came rushing back. "This is more than hurting me," I said, my voice shaking with controlled anger. "This is destroying everything we built. Do you even understand what you've done?" She sobbed harder, and I almost felt pity. Almost. But I reminded myself of Seth's words. "Stay focused, protect yourself, and document everything." "I want a divorce," I said firmly, "and I want full transparency. Every account, every contact, everything. No more secrets." Cindy nodded weakly, wiping her face. I'll do whatever you need." That night, after she went to bed, I reviewed everything again. Each screenshot, each message, each record, nothing missing, nothing altered. Seth would have everything he needed to file for a fault-based divorce. But there was more. As I scrolled through Cindy's phone, I found a folder she had forgotten to hide. Photos, messages, even video clips. Evidence that confirmed Brad's warning. She had been meticulous, calculated, and unapologetic. The more I saw, the angrier I felt, but also more resolute. I wasn't the naive, trusting man from months ago. I had a plan now. The next morning, I called Seth and scheduled a formal meeting with Cindy present. It would be the official confrontation, the day we began to untangle the web she had spun. Seth promised he'd guide everything legally, keep me protected, and ensure the truth came out. Driving to his office, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and relief. Anxiety because I knew Cindy would try to manipulate the situation, to twist words to make me doubt myself. Relief because finally, the truth was on my side, and I wasn't powerless anymore. When Cindy walked into Seth's office, she tried her usual charm, small smile, soft tone. But Seth's presence and the briefcase I placed in front of us immediately set the tone. She saw the documents, the printed screenshots, the timeline I had compiled. "Do you want to explain this?" Seth asked calmly, glancing at her. She faltered, then began a rambling confession. But every word she said was catalogued, every inconsistency noted. I stayed quiet, letting the evidence speak louder than any argument she could make. By the time the meeting ended, it was clear. Cindy's manipulations were fully exposed. Every lie, every affair, every terminated pregnancy, and every deception was on record. Seth assured me the divorce would proceed swiftly and in my favor, and that I had more than enough proof to protect myself financially and legally. As I left the office, walking into the crisp evening air, I felt a strange sense of closure beginning to form. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, it was still there, raw and painful, but I had control now, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again, because the truth had a power of its own. The next few days were a blur. I stayed in this strange in-between state, pretending to be sick to Cindy while secretly documenting everything, and pretending to be calm to myself while my brain screamed in 1,000 directions. Each night I'd lie on the couch, staring at the ceiling, hands still shaking from the hours I spent screenshotting her messages and social media activity. Every ding of my phone made me jump, thinking it was Cindy or Brad or, God forbid, another surprise I wasn't ready for. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. The way Cindy's perfume lingered in the apartment like a trap. How she would check the time on her phone every 3 minutes, even when there was nothing important to check. She seemed aware of my silence, almost sensing that something had changed, though she had no idea how much I already knew. Finally, I called Seth. "We need to move fast," I told him. "I don't want her to destroy anything else, or take off with half of what's ours while I'm still figuring out what to do." He didn't argue. He laid out the plan. Gather every piece of evidence, messages, social media interactions, financial records, receipts. File a fault-based divorce citing infidelity, emotional abuse, and deception. Freeze joint assets temporarily to prevent anything from disappearing. It felt surreal, turning our life into a case file. Like I was already in the courtroom in my head, testifying against the person I once loved. A few days later, Seth arranged a meeting with a private investigator. I was hesitant at first, but the thought of not knowing everything, of Cindy slipping through some loophole, made me agree immediately. The investigator, a sharp woman named Lila, began watching Cindy discreetly. She documented who Cindy met, what messages she sent, where she went. Within 2 days, Lila had enough to confirm that Cindy was still seeing someone else, the same pattern of deceit continuing, even after all the chaos had unfolded. Meanwhile, I focused on myself. I couldn't just sit there waiting for this nightmare to conclude. I started running late at night when the apartment was quiet, pounding the pavement until my legs shook and my lungs burned. At first, it was to release the tension, the rage, the heartbreak, but soon, it became about reclaiming control. I was tired of feeling powerless, of feeling like I'd been blindsided at every turn. One night, Cindy tried to talk to me about us, about how she wanted to fix things, how she was sorry. I just stared at her, the weight of everything she'd done pressing down on my chest like a boulder. I asked one question: "Who?" She froze. The silence stretched long enough to feel like hours. Finally, she whispered, "I can't. I love him. I can't tell you." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just walked past her and went into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. My phone buzzed with notifications. From Lila, she had tracked Cindy meeting one of the men at a cafe downtown. Another screenshot confirmed they'd spent the afternoon together, texting, laughing, like none of the past horrors existed for her. The next morning, I filed for divorce with Seth. I gave him everything: Brad's screenshots, Lila's report, Cindy's messages, bank statements, even the fertility clinic information. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Not happiness, definitely not, but control. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was acting, strategizing, surviving. Cindy, of course, acted surprised when she got the papers. She tried to cry, to plead, to manipulate, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. I didn't react. I let Seth handle the interactions, answering her questions with legal precision. She couldn't gaslight me anymore. I had the evidence, I had the plan, and I had my own back. That night, I walked past the bedroom where she sat, scrolling on her phone. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to break something, to make her understand the weight of her actions. But another part, the stronger part, felt calm. I was done being hurt by her lies. I was done letting her define my world. I poured myself a drink, the first in weeks, and just sat at the kitchen counter. The apartment felt different now, even though she was still there. I realized that I didn't need answers from her anymore. I didn't need apologies. I needed freedom. And that finally was something I could claim for myself. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Seth was relentless, organized, and precise, which made me feel safer than I had in weeks. Cindy tried to play the victim, crying in court, claiming she didn't mean for things to happen, but Seth had everything lined up: the screenshots, Lila's detailed report, the financial records, even the fertility clinic. Documentation showing she'd lied about the miscarriages. Every attempt she made to manipulate the narrative fell flat. I sat in the courtroom watching her plead, listening to her excuses, and felt nothing but a strange calm. I realized then that the person I'd loved for years no longer existed in my world. The woman who confessed over dinner, who hid her affairs behind lies and tears, wasn't mine anymore, and somehow that knowledge was liberating. After a particularly long hearing, Seth pulled me aside. "You did the right thing, Robbie. You documented everything, stayed calm, and didn't let her bait you. You'll get full custody of what's yours. And if she tries to hide assets or interfere, we can move fast. You're in control now." I nodded, the weight on my shoulders finally lifting. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt grounded. Once the divorce was officially filed, I went home to pack some essentials from the apartment. Cindy was already there, sitting on the couch with her head down. I didn't speak to her. I didn't need to. The silence itself was enough. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, grabbing clothes, documents, and personal items. Each piece I packed felt like reclaiming a part of myself she had tried to take away. That night, after everything was packed, I drove to a small apartment I'd found nearby. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. No lies, no manipulation, no hidden agendas, just me and my space. I sat on the edge of the new bed, looking around, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. I started slowly rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, spent time with my brother Alec, and even started dating again, cautiously. The betrayal had left scars, but it had also forced me to see my own strength. I realized I could survive anything, even the unimaginable. Months later, I ran into Cindy one last time. She was leaving a cafe with a man I didn't recognize. She saw me and froze, probably expecting anger or heartbreak. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. I simply nodded, smiled faintly, and walked past. She looked like the same person I'd loved years ago. But I no longer felt anything for her. I thought about Brad Wire sometimes, grateful he had been honest when I needed the truth most. I even sent him a brief thank you message once everything was settled, just to close that chapter properly. Looking back, I realized the anniversary dinner, the fancy steakhouse, the tears, the confession, was the moment my life shattered. But it was also the moment I finally woke up. Cindy's lies, the hidden pregnancies, the affairs, they all tested me in ways I never imagined. And I survived. I learned something critical through all of this. Betrayal cuts deep. But strength doesn't come from avoiding pain. Strength comes from facing it, documenting it, confronting it, and refusing to let it define you. And as I lay in my new apartment, alone but safe, I understood finally, life moves on and so must I.